I think maybe the biggest question I've seen out there is like, you've been very adamant, Matt Reeves' Batman universe is Matt Reeves' Batman. Yeah. And he's such a singular filmmaker. Let him do his thing. Have you contemplated, have you had the conversation, have you reconsidered integrating Pattinson's Batman into your DCU?
I've contemplated it. Yeah, I've contemplated it.
Right now, we're seeing a lot of rumors, debates, and discussions about what's going on with the DCU's Batman. The plan we've been told in the past by James Gunn is that Matt Reeves' The Batman universe will be its own separate story, and that the DCU will have its own Batman for its universe to be introduced in The Brave and the Bold. Two different live-action Batman movies, two different universes, happening at the same time. It's an incredibly risky idea. A lot of people think they won't be able to pull it off, and there are constant rumors that WB is reconsidering this idea, and that people behind the scenes are kind of torn on if they should go through with it. To give my honest opinion, I'm a bit skeptical if they'll be able to pull this off. I've got a lot of friends and family who aren't up to date with comic book movie news and rumors, and they had no idea about this plan for the DCU's Batman. So I explained it to them. And every time I did, they asked me to repeat myself. Multiple times. It was and is a confusing idea for the average moviegoer to take in. I think a lot of audiences will just be confused and think the Reeves movies are ending or being rebooted, or see no reason to watch another Batman movie with a different Batman so close to when a completely different Batman movie came out. I think it's just going to add to the already rising public fatigue of superhero movies, and will only end up damaging both films. Okay, so what's the fix to this? A lot of people think they already have a Batman movie that people like, in a Gotham people like, with characters people like. Why start all over again when you can just take that Batman and plop him into the DCU retroactively? That's really what they did in the comics, after all. It's not like they planned for the original Batman and Superman to be based in the same world. They did some crossovers with the two and went, okay, these characters are in the same world now, and always have been, and don't think about it too hard. Why couldn't they just do that with Robert Pattinson's Batman? I feel like combining the two worlds would be a bad idea for multiple reasons. One being that it robs Matt Reeves from his take of the character, forcing him into a shared universe with rules and a set tone and characters he would need to follow, restricting his creative freedom in a way that I think would frustrate him deeply. Another is the fact that, how do you explain the more fantastical elements of the DCU taking place in the Batman world? We already know that DCU Batman has fought off against Clayface and Dr. Phosphorus, characters with out-of-this-world abilities that would feel incredibly out of place in the more grounded world of the Batman. While Batman is struggling to take down domestic terrorists and armed thugs, you're saying he's managed in the past to take on and win against a man made of shape-shifting clay, and one that's highly radioactive and able to burn through anything you throw at him? It just feels a bit too out there. But one could argue it's the same in the comics. Comic book Batman deals with a large variety of threats, from bank robbers, terrorists, and the mafia, to world-ending immortals, zombie men, and living plants. If handled right, you could transition Pattinson to being in a more fantastical Gotham and DC universe, but the issue is, you wouldn't see a transition. It would just be going, yeah, by the way, in the background of the Batman, all this happened that feels incredibly out of place for this world we just showed you, but just go with it. Look, I get it. The contrast between the DCU Superman and Pattinson feels almost perfect. People put these two side by side, and they look so different yet perfect together. It doesn't help that Pattinson is the most comic-accurate Batman translation we've ever gotten in live action. People are dying to see him stand alongside Superman and Wonder Woman and the other Justice League members. Hell, I'm not even gonna lie, I would love to see that. But only if it was given the time to develop into that, which wouldn't be the case. Okay, after all that discussion, What do I think the DCU should do? You can't have 2 Batman movies in cinemas because it would confuse and likely piss off audiences. You can't combine both worlds because it would ruin the individuality that the Batman has and just feel incredibly out of place. What's left to do? Well, we've kind of had a somewhat similar situation like this happen in the past, where a comic book movie franchise struggled to put in their most iconic character to their universe, and eventually had to wait nearly a decade to have him appear in a film and have his own connected film. I think having that wait time and making audiences beg for it and daydream about it meant that when it did finally happen, oh my god, it felt like an event. I'm, of course, talking about Spider-Man. In the early years of the MCU, Marvel and Sony had back and forths about bringing over a Spider-Man into the universe. Originally, they planned to say that the Amazing films took place in the MCU, with them originally going to put Avengers Tower in the skyline of New York in The Amazing Spider-Man. But I believe scheduling conflicts stopped them from doing so. Fans were begging for Spider-Man, Marvel's biggest character, to come to the MCU. And finally, when it did happen, it broke the internet. You would think it was a Spider-Man film with how much they promoted it. I remember being in the cinema opening night and the crowd roaring when the Queen's font showed on screen. And the way they introduced him is by saying, oh, no, yeah, he's always been here. He's been saving people and fighting crime for a while now, you just never saw it. And what's incredible about this is the MCU went almost 10 years by this point with no Spider-Man. They were a $1 billion franchise without needing to rely on their main money printer. And I think this is the direction the DCU needs to take. The DCU doesn't need Batman. At least at first.
The Dark Knight will return on Cartoon Network.
I'm Batman.
They call me Sonic, 'cause I am faster than sound. I keep on jumping around. Blue Hedgehog Sonic, with incredible speed, I'm moving my feet.
I'm Bat Rabbit.
You can't elude justice. Batman is back on Cartoon Network.
I think I trust James Gunn and the people he's working with to handle the DCU films. I think they can pick DC up from what it once was and make it as big as Marvel is, or at least was, without Batman. Marvel was able to start an empire with C-list comic characters, and Gunn's done that before with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's doing it now with Creature Commandos and the Terrifics and Superman. You can do a big, expanding DC world without Batman, or at least without specifying your Batman. We've already seen Batman in the DCU, or we've seen 2 versions of him. 2 very different silhouettes in Creature Commandos. One with a long cape and long ears, similar to his 70s look, and one stubbier and thicker, like his more modern looks. Some people would say that this is inconsistent, but what if that's the point? What if, say, we do see Batman in the DCU, but only in the shadows? Batman as a hero in his early years was a myth. Someone you would hear rumors about on the street. Maybe you think you see his silhouette jumping between buildings. Maybe you see a batarang on the ground in the Gotham alley. And every person has a different idea of what he looks like. We know we're getting a Clayface movie, and you kind of have to have a Batman in a Clayface movie, but how? Well, you show him in only shadows. You show a hand, a boot, a fist, his ears. You know who it is. We all know who it is. But we don't see an actor. We don't see a clear suit. This opens up the possibility for when they do decide to do a Batman in the DCU, they have the freedom for him to be whoever they want. And it would build up hype for the eventual reveal. They could really have fun with this too. Maybe showing newspapers and films talking about the Gotham Batman. goons offhandedly saying that they know someone who saw him once and said he was 8 feet tall and bulletproof. You could make mention little ones of Wayne Industries or Bruce Wayne, little Easter eggs and hints here and there, but never anything incredibly solid. It could even almost be like the Stan Lee cameos for Marvel movies, always having a little reference or Easter egg in every DC film. I really think they should do this until Reeves' Batman movies are done. Let Reeves and Pattinson have their films, their take, and while that's happening, DC fans are speculating who this Batman could be. You could even do the Justice League films without Batman. Sure, he's a founding member of the original, but he's not in every single version of the team. Let other characters have the spotlight and give them their time to shine. And when the Pattinson trilogy is over, that's when you finally reveal him in the DCU. And then you can do flashbacks or prequels showing the history of this Batman, how he's always been there, and the Bat family he's had for all these years that's been fighting crime behind the scenes. Is this a tall ask? A bit. Yeah, we don't really know how long it'll be until the Reeves films are done. With the many delays to make sure the script and film will be perfect, it's likely we won't see this series end until the beginning of the 2030s, which means we might have to wait a while for a DCU Batman. Look, Batman has had enough time in the limelight being DC's money printer. I think it's time to give some other DC heroes their time to prove themselves and be household names. Specifically Plastic Man, I want a Plastic Man kids show, I want a HBO limited series, I want a film franchise, I want video games, I want action figures, I want a makeup line.